David.
How we doing? David, you go David there?
I did.
You know the only person who calls me David is Ray Didinger?
Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know why. Not even my parents call me David.
Really?
Yeah. Jordan Mailata will call me David sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
When he's annoyed with me. So if you're annoyed with me, which is a great place to start, this is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan.
I only call you David when I'm annoyed at you.
He's Reuben Frank. I'm David Zangaro. It feels really weird for me to say that. How are you doing? This is good.
Doing well, yeah.
This is technically kind of a Thursday podcast. I know we're recording it on Friday, but it's a Thursday in the Eagles schedule.
That's right. In Eagles world, it's Thursday. Everything's moved up a day, so here we are.
Do you get thrown off as much as I do?
Very much.
Yeah, it's very weird because whenever they play on a Monday night, they push their schedule back. They're creatures of habit. So their Wednesday schedule gets pushed to Thursday, Thursday to Friday, so on and so forth. So I think it's a Thursday right now. And the rest of the world does not agree.
Yeah, and I keep checking my phone to see what day of the week it is because I just don't know. And to make it even more complicated, we're coming off a Thursday night game. So we were never really in that Sunday, Monday mode either. So
it is a very weird schedule with a lot of that. There's only 3 1:00 Sunday games.
And 2 against Washington.
Yeah.
2 of the 3.
Yeah, it's just strange. It's a weird schedule. They're playing all days of the week and you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of 4:30 games.
Yeah, neither am I. I'd rather have an early or a night. The 4:00 feels like it just takes, even if you're just a fan, it takes up your whole day. You don't have time to do much before. I guess you do if you're a fan.
Well, for us, it's like we can't watch the 1:00 games because we're busy doing stuff. We can't watch the night game because we're doing this or working. So you don't get to watch any football.
Yeah, I want a chunk of time either before or after the game.
Yeah, but we have like 10 4 o'clock games.
It has a lot of 4:00 games.
Yeah, not many ones.
Yeah, although the ones on the West Coast, I'll be out there, so it will be a 1:00 for me.
For you, but not for me.
Not for you. Yeah. That's how time works.
That's interesting. It has to do with
yeah. All right, we have a lot to talk about today. This is our final pod before the Eagles-Bucs game on Monday Night Football. We're going to talk about the offense a little bit. A.J. Brown spoke for the first time since his discussion, how he termed it with Jalen Hurts on the sideline. I thought he did a really good job speaking about that, kind of putting it to bed. Jordan Davis, as a pass rusher, got a chance to talk to him a little bit on Wednesday, Thursday about that. Some injury updates, and we'll get into Eagles-Bucs matchups. We have predictions at the end, so a bunch to get to. Let's start with offense, because it is kind of the biggest topic with these Eagles. It's like the perfect start for a Nick Sirianni team because they're 2-0, but there's a lot to improve.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the passing game has been, other than two long passes to Devontae, it's been non-existent, really. It's been just so much short stuff, and they're not moving the sticks. And there's something to be said for taking what the defense gives you, but I think Jalen's also missing some guys that are open in the middle of the field. They only have 9 pass plays of 10 yards or more in 2 games. It's the fewest in the league, and it's their fewest ever since Stathead keeps track of that kind of thing. So there just hasn't been a lot of firepower there. And, they played a historically great defensive coordinator in week 1 and then played a new defensive coordinator who's a pretty good coach in week 2. So it's not a disaster, certainly. I mean, this is the first time in Eagles history that the first time since 1957 that the Eagles don't have a third receiver with at least 25 yards. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, it's been Devontae who's got like 178 yards, and AJ's got 110, and Dallas Goedert's their third leading receiver, 22 yards.
That's going to change.
It's going to change, but it's never. It hasn't happened in 60. What did I say? 66 years. It's just a reflection of just how off kilter the offense has been. But when you run for 259 yards, it covers up a lot of deficiencies in the passing game. I think it'll come. I really do. I'm surprised that it's come so slowly, but I'm not concerned. Not very concerned because they have good players. And they have a new coordinator, and they're going to play some teams that don't have elite defenses, and I think they'll be fine. But it is kind of weird. It
is, and I told myself after week 1, not concerned. I still feel that way after week 2. I'm trying to think about when if this continues, like at what point will I say this is a problem now? This is disjointed. I look at it like the talent is going to win out. Now there are like, if I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, like this offense isn't particularly, it's not super deep in that, like it's pretty simple. Like they run what they run and they run it well. And I think there has kind of been a little bit of a blueprint from these first two games that like it worked, right, to a certain extent. So teams are going to keep doing it. On the flip side of that, all these things that the Eagles have had thrown at them in the first 2 weeks, they've seen it now, and now they know how to counter it, which is a really big deal. Like we've heard Jason Kelce mention the chaos that's been thrown at the Eagles in the first 2 weeks, and that's kind of true. And not that it's surprising, but they have had a lot of unscouted looks. They've had just some wacky defenses thrown at them. But like in the long term, I think that probably helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. And you also have a new offensive coordinator who's just kind of learning to adjust and learning to deal with that stuff. So there's a lot going on there. What answer did you come up with as far as when you'll be concerned? Like if they throw for 160 yards Monday night in Tampa, I'll be a little concerned.
Do they win? Winning cures a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if right now, if they were 0-2 and the passing offense was bad, panic alarms would be going off across the city.
Yeah.
Winning cures a lot of that.
It does.
And like plays, and like the passing offense wasn't good in week 1, but like in the second half, they started getting AJ Brown a little bit. They got the offense moving because they were getting the ball to him. Like they've adjusted in both of these weeks to make you feel better. They've held on to win these games after building big leads in both of them. So like,
sure,
I have a hard time panicking now. If these were 2 losses, I think it's a different story.
But there's a lot of space between concern and panic.
Sure.
A lot of room there.
I think there's mild concern right now.
Yeah, that's how I would characterize it. That's what I mean, they did score 34 points and they had 430 yards. And yeah, I mean, there's certainly questions there, but I think you put it well. You said that eventually talent's going to take over, and they're elite on the O-line. They're elite at quarterback. They're elite at wide receiver. They're elite at tight end. And they have some really good running backs. One of them just was named player of the week. So they have talent. I do think it's going to come together. But if they win 23-20 on Monday night and the passing game has 168 yards, I'll be a little more concerned.
Maybe. Yeah. Pretty good defense they're going to face. We'll get to that in a little bit.
And they're not giving up a ton of rushing yards either, Tampa. So
yeah, I mean, they're excellent against them.
I think they're allowing 3.1 a carry.
Yeah.
So they're one of the, I think, 2 teams better statistically than the Eagles against the run.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can't run, they're going to have to make plays through the air.
Yeah, and honestly, what they've done against the run is more impressive than what the Eagles have done, because the Eagles have built leads and teams have to throw on them, whereas like the Bucs are in these close games and they're stuffing.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an interesting matchup from that standpoint. I think it's a legit defense down there.
Yeah, it is, and it's been for a long time. Todd Bowles knows what he's doing. I wanted to ask you about the running back situation. I asked Nick Sirianni on Wednesday, Thursday about it, and he took it as me trying to sneak out a question about who's the starting running back. And I don't really care about that. It was about DeAndre Swift, because he got so much of the workload in week 2. It was kind of an outlier game in his career. He's only had one career game with more touches than that, and it was an overtime game.
Yeah, 30.
That was a tie.
Yeah.
So he had a whole extra length of period.
I think other than that game, I think his next most carries was 16.
Yeah, so it's this is a real outlier game, and I just want to know if it's sustainable. I don't know if it is, but also I don't know if DeAndre Swift's ever had the opportunity to be a workhorse. I don't think all of a sudden he's going to be that here. I still think it's going to be some kind of rotation, but how much of the carries and how much of the touches he can take, I think will really go a long way in determining what it looks like.
Yeah, well, nobody can handle 28 carries a game.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just asking. But again, he's a guy on a 1-year contract, and teams are known to use up guys like that, get what they can out of them, and send them on their way. I I think it's more likely than not likely that he won't be here next year. So I don't think they're really concerned about that. And he's trying to get a contract, which running backs don't get anyway. I think we'll see some combination of Gainwell and Swift.
If you had to bet on, like, what's the percentage breakdown? Just those two guys.
Just on Monday night or the rest of the year?
Yeah, Monday night.
It's a good question. I'm going to say like 63-37 Swift Gainwell.
Very, very precise. I like that.
You know, like
I'm around there. I was going to say 65 Swift, but I guess Price is Right rules. I win there.
No, Price is Right is only Price is Right rules.
Okay.
So you can go over and still win. Or was that Let's Make It? What was that? Where you can't go over?
Price is Right. Yeah. It's like $1,001.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Price is Right. I don't think I've ever actually watched that show. Probably just watched promos.
Never watched The Price is Right?
I don't think I ever have. I don't think I've ever watched it.
What?
I've never watched The Price is Right. Does that make me a bad person, David?
It doesn't make you a bad person. I'm just surprised.
Well, who sits around and watches The Price is Right? I mean,
it's like the longest running TV show in the world.
Well,
people are watching it.
I mean, I have to watch it. I mean,
I'm not saying you have to. I'm just surprised you haven't.
I mean, do you watch Dancing with the Stars?
I've caught a few episodes.
Really?
That's like in passing.
It's been on for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Now I don't really watch a lot of TV. I think we've covered that ground.
Yeah. Well, for like my generation, it was a staple of you're homesick from school.
I never missed school.
You're watching Price. Oh, you were one of those kids.
Yeah.
Like, would you go to school sick just to have perfect attendance?
I didn't talk like that. But
maybe you didn't realize you did.
I felt like, I wanted to get the most out of the educational process.
Some kids need to go every day.
That's pretty much what it was. I didn't want to fall
I could skip a few.
I didn't want to fall behind. I didn't want to stay home and watch The Price is Right with David.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You got real life experience there.
Anyway. So, yeah, I think it's going to be some combination. And I think that's where, his performance on Thursday notwithstanding, I think that's where they're at their best.
I do too. I wonder if internally in this long bye week, they went back and go, what were we doing?
Yeah.
Giving Kenny Gainwell all that. I know we like him, but the other guy is clearly more explosive. He has bigger playability. He's a better runner. He's a better player. I like Kenny Gainwell. DeAndre Swift's a better player, right?
I think that's fair.
And it's not even a knock on Kenny. I think he's going to have his situations. I think they trust him to do. I think they trust him in pass protection, which is a huge part of being a running back that doesn't get talked about enough.
And he's the best on the team.
Him and Boston are very good at that. And that was not a strength of DeAndre Swift's in Detroit, certainly. So, like, I get that there's a role for Kenny Gainwell, but all you have to do is watch Swift and you see, okay, there's a little different level in terms of explosion and playmaking ability.
And what's crazy is that the running backs combined have, 14, 12, 18 receiving yards. And we made such a big deal that, they've got all these good receiving backs.
Yeah, but it's hard to really get a read on that when the entire passing offense has been so wonky.
But I don't think there's no play that's safer, low risk, that with these weapons can get you 6-7 yards than throwing to the back. It's a little screen. Screen,
I don't think screens are a low risk play.
I do.
I disagree with that. Screens are like everything has to time up perfectly on a screen to make it work. Whereas like if you're talking about like dumping off a ball in the flat, that's different than a screen. A screen is like a timing play.
No, I understand what a screen pass is, but
okay.
If
it's not a low risk play.
It's a low risk play because you're not going to turn the ball over and you're probably going to get some yards.
You don't know you're not going to turn the ball over. You're throwing to a guy who doesn't have as good a hands as a receiver, and it's in the backfield. Or not in the backfield, but it's behind the line of scrimmage.
If your argument is that screen passes are more dangerous than thrown to a back coming across the middle, I'm not going to argue about it. But my point is that I think that throwing to the backs in a variety of forms, including screens, could be a weapon for this team as they try to figure out the passing game.
Maybe. I still kind of think that it's tough to get a read on the backs being part of the offense when, if you can't get the ball to A.J. Brown, maybe let's not.
Running backs are going to have a higher percentage of catches per target than a wide receiver, just because they're shorter passes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that can really help jumpstart the offense. And you have a chance to get some big yards after the catch because those guys are good athletes. Gainwell had
tough this week with those linebackers.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
It was the longest catch by nobody on the roster has a catch longer than 9 yards other than AJ and Devontae. That's crazy.
It is crazy. They had that one crosser to Quez where that had the potential
to
be a big play, just didn't go for it. Dallas was open in week 1 for gains that would have been 10 plus. Jalen just didn't hit him. They really got to get Dallas involved.
That's huge. 22 yards.
He opens the middle of the field so well, run the seam. That's a big part of this offense that they haven't really scratched yet.
3.7 yards per catch.
I predict the over on that by the end of the season.
Yeah, it better be. It's going to be a short season.
Talked to AJ Brown on Wednesday, Thursday. He brought up, it was funny because he saw us we're kind of waiting for him because he hadn't talked after the game. And he eventually explained why, but he walks in the locker room and he had a box kind of in front of his locker. It was like a toy, I guess, for his daughter. So it was a big box and he put it out in front as a barrier between us and him. And he kind of joked about it. And then he said, all right, yeah, let's do this. And he was asked a question not about Thursday. And he said, oh, hold on, let me.
What was he asked?
About Monday Night Football and playing on Monday Night Football.
That was the first question to AJ?
It was, yeah. So
what'd you think of the question?
he said, let me just go back to Thursday night. He wanted to address it. I thought he obviously had prepared his thoughts on this, and I thought he delivered them well. I'll paraphrase here a little bit. He said him and Jalen had a discussion. He said it was the discussion. It was not a fight. It was not an argument. It was the discussion. The cameras caught it. It was not about target share. He said it was about something that happened earlier in the game. He said they're not beefing. They don't have a problem with each other. They're still good friends. It was a moment in a game. And that was it. He said he wants to move on. And he said that after the game, he was still a little emotional. So he decided to remove himself and not speak on it then and wait. And just by the nature of the schedule, his next opportunity was a week later on Thursday.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, a week later for the regular world. So it was a long time waiting, and it left a lot of time for people to
overreact,
but also we didn't know. So, it was his first chance. I thought he did a good job explaining it all. And I agree with him. He actually said something that I brought up. He kind of said it jokingly, but he's right. Nick made it worse.
You think?
Yeah. When Nick walked over and
got
in the, got not by what he said, but I'm saying on the sideline,
right.
Nick walked over and got in between them when he didn't really need to get in between them. And it made it look like a bigger deal than it was.
Yeah. I think anybody that's played sports knows that. I mean, you had a hockey game last night. I'm sure at some point.
No, I don't care. I'm old.
But I'm saying at some point too, your teammates probably yapping at each other. What are you doing? I'm open here. Pass me the puck or whatever it is. That's sports. I mean, I played in a softball team for 4 years and with all my best friends. And I mean, you're just cursing at each other. You're screaming at each other. But the beer's still just as cold after the game.
You guys waited till after the game in your softball league?
We did because we weren't good enough to play drunk.
Okay.
So the other team would always start drinking because, they would see us and be like, we start drinking. It was a doubleheader league, South Jersey Sunday men's.
Not a good feeling when the other team's got their hand on the tab and they just see you walk in and shh.
Yeah. And and they would have beers they would have kegs in the outfield and stuff. And but we would always win the second game.
Oh, it makes sense.
Because we didn't start drinking until after the game and they would start drinking before the first game. So we had a pretty good record in second games. We got killed in the first game. But anyway, I still have all my stats from that league.
I bet you do.
I'm sure that surprises you. Softballreference.com, they're all there. But yeah, look, it's happened before with AJ. It's just who he is.
He's an emotional guy.
He is very much. And I mean, there's 17 games.
I did like the one element of it he brought up that I hadn't really thought about. That he said, he's not afraid to have uncomfortable conversations. And he actually looks at it as a part of his leadership style. He said, I have a C on my chest for a reason. No, I don't know if, I think maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but I also see his point that, if there's something that needs to be said, he's not going to be shy about it. He's going to say it. And he said, he was like, people are going to hold me accountable. I'm going to hold them accountable. And I took that as meaning, hey, I thought Jalen screwed up earlier and I was telling him about it.
Yeah.
Like, I like that. I like that the quarterback isn't beyond that.
Yeah, that's true.
For the star receiver. Now, I don't know if it needs to play out like that, but I'm okay with the sentiment behind it.
Yeah, and he's got to understand, look, the cameras are going to find everything. Every time something like that happens.
He said he doesn't care. He's like, I know it. Like, I asked him when he knew that it was going to be an issue, and he said, well, walking off the field, I knew. He's like, I know Philly. I knew right away.
But it'd be that way everywhere. It would be that way in Jacksonville or Seattle or Green Bay. It's just,
Chicago.
Yeah, definitely Chicago. But yeah, but I think we know those three guys well enough after being around them for a couple of years, more than a couple of years for a couple of them, that we just know how close they are and how much they trust each other, how close they are off the field. I just don't worry.
I think it does kind of speak to their relationship a little bit.
I think it does.
Yeah. They are so close that they probably feel like they can do that. Whereas, if you don't really know the other guy, like if this was, year one with these two guys, like knowing each other and they're having it out on the sideline, I think that's more of a concern.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, people mock Nick for the whole connection thing, but it's big when it comes to these kind of things.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, and you don't like they are best friends, but you don't always have to be best friends either. It just has to be a working deal.
And that kind of stuff makes you a better team. I mean, communication, period.
It can, but it's also like a fine line too, because it can go one way or the other. And as long as you keep it on the right side of it, you're right. It can be good.
And I don't worry about any of these guys going across that line.
Mm-hmm. No,
just don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see.
Yeah. I don't think it's an issue right now.
Yeah. I mean, if they're 5-9 going into week 15, we'll see. And AJ's got like 30 catches for the year, but I don't worry about it.
Yeah. All right. That's fair enough. I don't have a smooth transition here. Let's just flip to the other side of the football. I talked to Jordan Davis this week. I have to bring this up. We have a cough button, and I was watching you, and you didn't hear the cough, right? No one heard the cough. That's because we have these new cough buttons.
Someone might have
in our studio.
Your mic.
Oh, you think so? I don't think it was that loud.
If you see you going for the cough button, you should do it too. So it's like,
well, then there's just silence.
Well, I think people will be happy about that.
But I saw the look in your eye. I could tell you had a cough, and the panic as you tried to remember where the cough button was.
Yeah, the mic thing was covering it up.
You found it. That was good.
I could just see.
I'm sorry I had to bring it up.
I could just see Finers back there, like on your left, Reuben. It's right there.
All right, Jordan Davis. He's been really impressive so far. Honestly, as great as Jalen Carter has been, I almost think Jordan Davis has been a bigger story on defense,
because I think we all expected Jalen Carter to play the way he has.
Maybe not to that level.
Maybe not quite to that level, but after seeing him in training camp, I mean, it's like, this guy is special. But we've seen something from Jordan Davis that I'm not sure any of us really expected to see at this level this soon, and that's his ability to pressure the quarterback, and has been really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, it has. And I talked a little bit this week about, he wanted to be more than a run stopper, because that was the label on him. And it was, look, if Jordan Davis was only a run stopper in the NFL, I mean, he wouldn't have been worth a first round pick.
He'd be Mike Patterson.
Yeah, maybe better than Mike Patterson. But like he'd be a functional player. He'd be a good player. He'd play a long time. He'd make a good amount of money.
Mike Patterson.
But he'd be better than Mike Patterson. But you're right. I get the idea. But in order for him to reach his potential, in order for him to ever be worth the 13th overall pick in the draft, he had to show something as a pass rusher. And it's a steep learning curve for any defensive tackle to really start to do that in the NFL. So to see him in 2 games have 1.5 sacks, be out there on third downs, get 3 quarterback hits, the first 3 quarterback hits of his career in these 2 games, I've been really impressed.
Yeah, it shows tremendous growth as a player. And I like the quotes. Dave did a story. He talked to Jordan Thursday. I guess it was Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
And story's up on our site now. He's very, very self-aware. He knew that was a step he had to take to be, to be an above average player, to be a really good player. And he's done it. Look, it's 2 games, but it's been impressive. And it just, it gives that line such an additional weapon when you're getting that pressure from inside. They haven't gotten it super consistently from the outside. You got a really good pressure from the inside. He's done it consistently over 2 games. Now he's got to keep it going. And I mean, I don't worry about those guys against the run. They're beasts against the run. But man, if he can keep that going, that is such a weapon for this defense.
Yeah, because he's a different kind of pass rusher. It's just pure power.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fitting that I got to talk to him this week about it, because they're about to face Vita Vea, who Jordan knew it was unavoidable when he came out of college. Like, his comp was Vita Vea, because they're both like 350-pound nose tackles, and Vea has turned into a really good pass rusher. Had 6.5 sacks last year, career high. He has 1.5 like Davis in the first 2 games this year, but it took a while. Early in his career, he had 3 sacks, 2.5, 2, jumped up to 4 in his Pro Bowl year in 21. But like, he's become a legitimate pass rusher. It just takes some time.
Do you know what his full name is?
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Come on, try it.
There's a Tui Pelotu in there.
There is. They're probably related.
I can nail that one. Tavita, Tuliaka Ono, Tui
Pelotu, Moses.
Was that Moses?
Vahai, Fahoku, Falitau, Vea. Wonder why they call him Vita. Imagine Merrill trying to say that name. What a play by Tavita, Tula, Woka, Ono, Tui Pelotu, Moses, Vahai, Fahoko, Faletau, Vea. I don't know.
He's a great player.
Great player.
Yeah. And
the comp is understandable.
And it's a compliment. It's an absolute compliment.
I mean, they were drafted, I think Vea was 12, right? So they're drafted
12th overall and 18.
Around the same spot. Look, I don't expect Jordan to have 10 sacks this year, but if he can have 4 or 5 and keep the pressure coming like that, then, I mean, Vita Vea didn't make his first Pro Bowl till his 4th year. Jordan Davis is going to be at that point if he keeps improving the way he has.
And it's tough for a guy like Vea to make the Pro Bowl, because you have these like legitimate like 3 techs. Like, making.
It's not even the same position.
Yeah, it is different. So that's always a tough deal. Saw Big Hargrave get a sack.
Yeah, he's playing well. He's got a couple.
Yeah,
that defense is legit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's very encouraging what we've seen from Jordan Davis, and I'm honestly a little surprised it's come this quick. I don't think he necessarily showed this in training camp. We watched them for an entire summer. Like, I didn't see this coming.
No, I didn't either.
I thought maybe he'd get a little better. Like, maybe he'd pick up a sack here or there, but
yeah, sometimes it's hard to tell because they're not doing. Just the way they practice, they're not. I'm not sure how many opportunities he's really getting. Yeah. He's getting some. I just think he's stronger. He just seems stronger to me. Yeah. I think Eagles fans should be really. I don't know about relieved. There were questions about him coming out of last year, and part of it was the injury. But I think what it shows is just how seriously he takes this thing, and he's an unusual personality, and sometimes he can come across like, I don't know. Not very serious, but I mean, he's very serious about the game.
He's fun loving. He's jolly.
Yeah, he is. But
I'd rather a big guy like that to be jolly than angry.
Yeah, no doubt, especially when you're interviewing him. But I think it shows just how seriously he took the offseason and how driven he was to make himself a better player. Yeah,
I think you brought up a good point though. It's got it. We'll see if it's sustainable because he's not playing a ton of snaps. He's playing more snaps. He did get banged up a little bit in that last game. He was on the sideline for a bit. He's been on the injury report this week. So we'll see if he's able to do this for an entire season. But, man, I've been encouraged. And him and Jalen Carter playing next to each other, they know how to do that. It's fun to watch them work off each other.
Yeah, he's already got more quarterback hits, more hurries, more tackles for loss, more sacks than last year.
Yeah, just in 13 games.
In 2 games versus 13 games. Yeah.
Been very impressed.
And forced fumbles.
Yeah. That forced fumble was
just effort.
That was like, you watch that play and you're like, oh, I get it. I get all of it.
Yeah.
He's that big. He can move that fast. He had the instincts to recognize the screen, the speed to get there, and the athleticism to make a dive or a leaping, punching tackle. Like, that is the reason they drafted him 13th overall, for all of those things that he showed on that play.
One thing I think I'm writing about on my 10 observations for this weekend is the Eagles have never had two elite young interior linemen. They've never.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe before my time, but there wasn't that many games before my. But like Fletcher never had that other. There
was always they different guys.
Yeah, they would run guys in here. Some of them,
maybe Timmy was like the closest he had,
and that was a very short period where he was a productive player. He was pretty good. Corey Simon never had that. He had like Darwin Walker and guys who were good, but not up to the. And I just went back and looked, and like Jerome Brown and Andy Harmon played together 1 year, 91, but Andy wasn't even starting yet. And that was Jerome's last year. So they've never, Mike Patterson and Broderick Bunkley. Neither one was.
That was like that were supposed to be.
They were both first round picks a year apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think a year apart. But Bunkley was a disappointment. He never really panned out. Mike had a nice career, but they've never had two. And it just kind of.
Now they might have three.
They might have three. You're talking about Milton, who's just playing really, really
or that
well.
Young kid Fletcher Cox. He looks great so far.
Yeah, but as far as Jalen Carter's 22 and Jordan Davis is 23. So to have two guys like that is really rare, and you don't see a lot of that. And they're just going to grow together. It's going to be something. Yeah,
and it's fun because they start with this high baseline already of playing with each other. So you carry that over, and it does carry over. Like not everything carries over from college, but knowing how to play next to the guy,
right,
that carries over for sure.
Yeah, and it is.
All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we'll get into some injuries, some matchups, and a prediction.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Reuben, the Eagles back at practice on Thursday to kick off the week. 3 guys returned. Good news here. James Bradbury, Kenny Gainwell, and Reed Blankenship. They were all limited, but obviously trending in the right direction after missing last Thursday's game.
Yeah, and they need them. Look, they patched it together on Thursday night, but they need all those guys back. But Blankenship certainly, who's off to had a great camp and all.
How would you rank them in importance getting them back?
Out of
those 3,
Bradbury, Blankenship, and
Kenny.
I'd probably say Bradbury, Blankenship, Kenny.
Me too.
Yeah, because they have safeties who have played a lot of football. They don't have corners that played a lot of football.
They don't. Yeah, it'll be nice to get Bradbury back. Guys who did not participate on Thursday, Terrell Edmonds had an illness. Boston Scott still in the concussion protocol. Quez Watkins with a hamstring. Yeah. Now, that Quez Watkins injury is a little concerning, not because of the player necessarily, but because of the numbers at receiver. You don't want to go into a game with 4 receivers.
Yeah.
And then right now they have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Britton Covey as your 4. Typically, you want to go into a game with 5 receivers.
Yeah, and I don't even count Covey as he's played a couple snaps on offense. He's never been targeted.
Yeah.
He catches the ball okay out of the slot, but it's not ideal. So it'd be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. Overall, receivers like a little concerning, which sounds weird because you're so top heavy there. But gosh, if they ever suffer an injury to one of those top guys, it's a little bleak.
And we haven't really talked much about Quez, but when we talk about getting more people involved in the offense, he's, obviously he and Goddard.
Get in line, Quez.
But I mean,
I get it. Yeah.
He can be a weapon. He can be this is a guy who had almost 700 yards a couple of years ago, or over 600.
Yeah.
Was it 634 maybe?
I think 647.
But I'll have to check that. I think you're right.
If I'm not right, then it's really weird that exact.
No, you're right.
You're
You're
right. Okay.
Well, I was close. You were right.
That's how it goes.
But they do. Yeah. I mean, they need to get more guys involved. And he was a big story in camp. The new confident Quez, and
yeah.
Was he targeted once in the first 2 games before he got hurt?
Yeah, he caught a ball or 2. Yeah, I think he caught 2 in the first game, I think.
Yeah, 2 for 17.
Yeah. I only remember one of them was a crosser.
Been targeted twice. It was a first down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a first down. It was a nice play, but I mean, he can be a weapon. They got to get somebody involved. But
who would be next up at receiver?
That's a good question.
Because the reason I'm talking about you want to have 5 receivers is because you at least need 4 to have your entire playbook open.
Right. Well, who are the guys on the practice squad?
Devin Allen and Joseph Ngata.
And Greg Ward.
And Greg Ward, okay.
How about Greg Ward?
Maybe call him up for this game?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you only need 1 elevation because Covey's on the 53-man roster now. So you're going to elevate Braden Mann.
Right.
Then you have another guy.
I mean, to me, Greg Ward is the best option.
Probably. And then if not, you have DeAndre Swift, who's taken reps and the individual with receiver. So I'm sure he knows the plays as a receiver. You have, they could theoretically activate 4 tight ends and play Albert O at receiver a little bit.
You think he's ready to play?
I don't know. I think he's getting closer. I wouldn't be shocked if he's active soon. Don't know if it's going to happen, but they did. I know it was a late round pick swap, but they didn't trade for him to sit on the bench all year and then walk away as a free agent.
No, but it's, he got here so late. And a lot to learn. Big guy. I wouldn't mind seeing him out there.
Yeah. The weird thing with him is he's never played special teams.
Is that weird?
In the regular season. He started doing it in preseason. Just yesterday, I saw him on some special teams drills. So something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah.
Any other injury things we need to hit?
No. 3 more games for Nakobe. He'll be eligible for the Jets.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like he's doing well. Ashlyn Sullivan caught up with him at a charity event. Seems like he's in high spirits, and
I think Nakobe's always in high spirits.
I think so, but it sounds like it's the timetable hasn't shifted drastically.
Right. And he's the only guy in IR who's coming back. We haven't really talked about Avante.
Yeah, he had surgery on Thursday. Most likely out for the season.
I can't imagine he would play.
Yeah. The pec is typically you're done for the year.
Yeah. And
I think, with modern medicine, there's no reason to declare him out for the season.
Sure.
Like even the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, well, maybe if things go excellently, I think it's one of those situations with Avante. It's pretty unlikely, but you never say never.
Have we ever seen a guy who's missed almost the entire season and come back in the playoffs? I was trying to remember. It never seems to go well. It's tough to miss that much time.
Yeah.
And then,
remember a few years ago, Brandon Brooks came back he was on IR, came back at practice, and then the Eagles lost in the playoffs.
Right.
Against the Bucs, actually, right?
Right. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, he started the practice, I believe, and the plan was if they advanced, then there was a chance he could come back.
Yeah, that's tough to do. We haven't really talked about. I don't know if you want to talk about the slot at all and the options there.
Yeah, we talked about it on the last pod a little bit. Options are somewhat limited. You either go with Mario Goodrich, you go with James Bradbury sliding outside, inside, or you play a safety in there, whether it's Justin Evans or Sidney Brown. And I think it'll be a combination of those things. I think long term, like you would like to have just Mario Goodrich out there, but in situations you are going to have Bradbury inside when the matchups dictate it, and this is a week where the matchups might dictate it.
Yeah, Mike Evans plays in the slot.
Well, Chris Godwin even more.
Yeah. I mean, they're both good. I don't think you want. But again, if you put Bradbury inside, now you have Josh Jobe on. Somebody pretty good.
Sure.
So I think you're right. I think it'll be a combination of things. But it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle it.
Yeah, and in my matchups piece that we'll get to in a second, I list the percentages of snaps that Evans and Godwin have taken in the slot, both last year and this year, but like they can both play there is the point. And when you look at this Eagles team, why would they not play them in there this week?
Sure.
Yeah. I did want to mention Trayvon Diggs getting hurt.
Yeah.
That stinks, man.
Yeah.
He was playing so well. That Cowboys defense was fun to watch. Seems like a really good dude too. He always has his kid hanging around the building. Man, you just never want to see that. That's a shame. We've had some really significant injuries here in the first few weeks.
And I was going to say it's probably my imagination, but it seems like there's been more.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe just high profile guys.
Yeah.
I mean, to have him, Nick Chubb, and Aaron Rodgers alone is like a lot.
Yeah. The Chubb one, man, that was sad.
I was really hoping to avoid seeing it.
I never did.
I did. I didn't want to. I've seen enough of those. I gained nothing out of seeing it. I was glad the broadcast didn't show it, and then I was scrolling social media, and it was there.
Can't avoid it.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah,
and it was exactly as bad as I thought it would be. So don't go searching for that. All right, you want to get into matchups a little bit? This is a fun matchup because you have Todd Bowles and the Bucs, who, of course, a couple years ago, that defense gave the Eagles fits. It gave Jalen Hurts fits. There was that clip of hearing that Jalen Hurts can't read the defense.
Who was that? Do you remember?
It was one of the coaches.
Yeah, I know. I forget. We're both Googling it.
I'm not Googling it.
Video
I was going to talk around it until you put me on the spot.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. I found the story.
Okay.
It just doesn't say. Somebody wrote a story about it, but didn't say who said it. Maybe they weren't really sure. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But
yeah,
that was a bad game for Jalen.
It was a bad game, and it kind of showed off all of his deficiencies at that point in his career.
Yeah,
and he didn't really want to get into it too much, but I have to imagine.
I want to get into anything.
Yeah, it's true. But I have to imagine when he watches that tape, and they have to watch that tape this week because not only has that scheme not really changed, they have a lot of the same players. Yeah. Like for all this talk that the Eagles have said about we're two different teams. I mean, the Eagles are pretty different because their quarterback has gotten a lot better, but personnel-wise, like a lot of those players on Tampa Bay are still there.
Devin White, Levante David.
Yeah. Sure.
Vita Vea.
Yeah. Winfield in the back end. Like it's a lot of the same guys who were out there. So curious to see what it looks like this time. And I, as much as Jalen tries to downplay the external motivation, based on what we know about him, I think there is extra motivation for him in this game.
There's no question. He just won't admit it. Mm-hmm. There has to be. He's human.
I think if they win the game and we see, how they always send out those like post-game locker room speeches, that's my prediction. They win the game, and when we eventually see that post-game locker room speech, he brings up how much it meant to him or something.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
he'll in his post-game presser, he'll say, it doesn't mean anything. That was a long time ago. But then you'll see him like making a speech about
bleeps said I couldn't read a defense.
Yeah, that's how it always is.
Yeah,
it's a dumb question, but then when I want to make the point, then it's a good point.
Pretty much. We know the Todd Bowles defense. We've seen it for years. They're going to heat you up. 6th in the NFL in blitz percentage. The top 2 teams in the league are New England and Miami, or not New England, Miami. I was thinking Florida, New England and Minnesota. So they'll heat you up too. It's going to be a lot of blitzing. It's going to be getting after Jalen, and we'll see how he does.
Jason Light's good GM.
Yeah, I give them credit. They bring in Baker, and we'll get to Baker in a second, but they looked around and thought, hey, like we have a pretty good defense. We have weapons on offense. Our line's not awful. And look at this division. The NFC South is awful. So why not go for it? They have a really good shot to win this division.
Yeah.
And once you get there, you never know.
Yeah. No, I think that's the right call. And I think they're the best team in the division.
Yeah.
Probably not close.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints have a decent defense. The Falcons are, they're playing all right. Panthers are not great. It's going to take a while there.
Yeah. Let's look at some matchups.
Okay. You're getting me back on target here. Eagles run game versus the Bucs defense. You brought it up. The Bucs have been excellent against the run. They've really been excellent against the run since Todd Bowles got there.
Yeah.
Number 1 ranked run defense since 2019. It's tough sledding against them. They blitz, but man, they stopped the run on the way there. And curious to see what happens because the Eagles obviously have the offensive line to be really good running the football, and it's kind of like two forces coming together here.
Yeah, in 21, when they started running the ball in the Detroit game and they just started running like 50 times a game, they were running the ball against great run defenses and bad run defense. I mean, so I'm not sure they're at that level. We'll see, but and I think one thing that would help is if Jalen, when he does run, can pick up some yards because he hasn't really. Yeah,
that's interesting. They've run him, but he hasn't done it. Brian Johnson said they're close to hitting on some of those.
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
I haven't seen the ones where they're close. I see him running into defenders. And
well, if he didn't run into them, maybe that would help.
But there's multiple defenders, but I just don't see a lot of the running plays, whether RPOs or whatever they are. I just don't see him working. Scrambles, none of them are working. That would help.
There've been a few scrambles that have worked.
Maybe like 2. Yeah, he converted a 3rd and long. I think he had like a 14-yard run, but those are few and far between for a guy that we're used to seeing, just run at will for, 8, 10, 12 yards. I'm really curious to see if they can run against this team and how much they'll even try. I think after last week, I think they're going to try.
Yeah.
And they should be at full. Well, we don't know if Boston will be there, but they should be, they should have everyone
mostly
else
at full strength. That's been, the offensive line has played every snap in 2 games, which is
interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good way to start. And that's kind of the matchup. In the matchup here is Vita Vea inside against really Jason Kelsey and Cam Jurgens, 2 undersized interior linemen. This is the biggest guy they'll face. And he's a load inside. He's tough to move, and he'll move you. So just from a size standpoint, this is a tough one for the interior.
Yeah, it's a great challenge. And if you're an Eagles fan, I guess he's not fun to watch. But if you're a football fan, he's really fun to watch because he's so fast and so athletic and so big.
Power, just pure power from that dude. All right, want to flip to the other side?
Yeah.
What do you make of Baker Mayfield so far?
Been really efficient.
He's been great.
I mean, there's been times where he's been good, like in 2020, he won a playoff game in Pittsburgh. Okay. I think they were like 11-5 that year in Cleveland. But it's been, and then he was on some bad Browns teams, and then he's
better than the guy they dumped him for.
Yeah, that's for sure. He started some games for the Rams, I think, but he didn't play great, but he's been really efficient, and he's not awful, and he's got weapons. He's not making mistakes. They're protecting him, and the Eagles' pass defense has been bad. I mean, giving up almost 800 passing yards. Cousins is going to do that. The Mac Jones against a healthy secondary, that was a little concerning. So, he's not a guy that's going to throw for 400 yards, but he's efficient. He's not making mistakes. I think he's only been sacked 1 time, so they're protecting him.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous matchup.
He hasn't turned the football over at all. The Bucs in general haven't.
Yeah. I think if look, we think that everyone's going to be back playing, but how healthy are they? 100%? Is Bradbury 100%? Is Blankenship 100%?
I would think Bradbury will be.
Yeah, he should be off a concussion. But you still, it's a tough matchup. And I know people are going to laugh, but I mean, he's a smart guy and he's playing as well as he's ever played.
He's been great on third downs.
Yeah. Their third down numbers are crazy.
Yeah. 87% on third downs.
Yeah.
He is. Pretty impressive.
Yeah. So
let's move to his weapons.
It's concerning.
Yeah. You have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Mike Evans, one of my favorite careers, just rolls out of bed each year and gets 1,000 yards. He's a Hall of Famer. But where do you think what's the highest he's ever been in terms of like the best receiver in the NFL? Like, what's the highest ranking?
He had a 1,500 yard season in 2018. He was probably like third or fourth best. I don't know if he's ever been higher than that.
Yeah. Just a crazy career, though. 9 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's well on his way to a 10th. He has 237 yards in 2 games.
And for those 1,000-yard seasons, he had 1,051 or fewer yards. Like he had a 1,001, a 1,006, a 1,035. So he's getting there, but just barely. But he's also averaging over 15 yards a catch in his career, which is a big number.
He has 83 touchdowns too.
That's a crazy number.
Yeah.
He's got 4 double-digit. He's got 4 seasons of 12 or more touchdowns.
Where do you land on like the Hall of Fame debate versus the accumulators? And it feels unfair to call it feels like such a derogatory term, but it's not. Like the accumulators versus the peak.
It's hard to tell. I mean, he won a Super Bowl, so there's that. He had a good postseason that year. I think
4-time Pro Bowler.
Never been an All-Pro, right?
No, he was a second teamer in 2016.
Yeah. It's tough. Like you look at a guy like Henry Eller, to me, is a Hall of Famer, but he'll never get in just because people think he was an accumulator. And his numbers are probably pretty similar to Evans. Not as good, but he was a 2-time All-Pro. It's tough. It's
and there's
tough.
Such a logjam at receiver, and it's not getting any. Like there are more guys coming down the pike.
There's more guys retiring with huge numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what you do with these guys. I wish I was on that committee.
Do you?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of responsibility.
I don't shy away from responsibility. But just I love the research that goes into it and the comparisons and I think a lot of I
do think like the process is interesting. Like if you don't know the process, it's basically like the local representative whoever the Tampa Bay representative is would basically pitch their case for Mike Evans. So I always love the ones where it's like when, Peyton Manning came up and they're like, he's Peyton Manning. All right, let's move on. Yeah.
Yeah. I know Harold Carmichael had asked me to write up some stuff when he was trying to get in. And, I kind of like stats. So
is that right?
Yeah.
Was that like normal process or was that then senior committee? You mean?
When the senior committee was was looking at him, but the guy that was standing up for him in the meetings was Sal Palantonio, and they used all those numbers that I gave them, and there was some pretty compelling ones, and hopefully it helped them get in. But you need somebody to advocate for you. Like Eric Allen's never had that. He's clearly a Hall of Famer, better than Aeneas Williams, for crying out loud, who got in the second year. But he's never had anyone to stand up in front of that committee and say, this guy intercepted 60 passes. He had 10 touchdowns. He's one of the greatest cornerbacks to ever play. He's never been a finalist, but there's nobody. And the problem is the committee gets younger and younger because people retire and they drop off, and they didn't watch Eric Allen. And so I don't know what the answer is. I know there's talk about expanding the senior committee and the number of people they put in. I mean, for Al Wister to not get in, that was a shame. I was really hoping. I thought he was going to get in. A lot of people did. But in any case, Mike Evans to me is a Hall of Famer. Just that consistency. I don't know what the numbers say as far as, was he played 10 years?
This is his 10th year.
This is his 10th year. I would think there's not a lot of guys who had more yards in their first 9 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been so consistent. And him and Godwin are a really nice 1-2 punch. Godwin kind of gets in his shadow a little bit, but he's a really good player. He plays in the slot more. Last year, he was in the slot 66% of his snaps. It's been down this year, but like I mentioned, if you got a chance in this game to put him in there, you're probably going to do that with him and Evans.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's going to be a tough matchup. There's going to be tough matchups somewhere.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's see. I just looked this up. Mike Evans in his first 9 seasons, but I put single season instead of combined seasons, which I always do. But I'm guessing he's top 10 or top 7. Now it's giving me passing yards. I'll see a chance. Anyway, StatHead does.
I like that when you're looking something up, you give us play-by-play of how you're looking at it.
StatHead does now. It's like if you change one,
it resets.
It resets everything.
Yeah,
which is so stupid. Mike Evans is ninth most yards in the first 9 years.
Okay,
10,425.
Who's first?
Julio Jones.
Wow,
and then Torrey Holt, then Jerry Rice, Calvin Johnson, Antonio Brown, Marvin Harrison, Randy Moss, and DeAndre Hopkins. And Larry Fitz is 10th, so that's your top 10. To me, all those guys are Hall of Famers.
Yeah, it's fair. All right, my last matchup here, Hassan Reddick versus Luke.
Jordan Matthews is 12th. Not really.
Oh, I thought he was. I was like, that doesn't make sense.
First 3 years.
Yeah. Hassan Reddick versus Luke Goedeke.
Yeah.
But this could be a chance for Reddick to make some hay. Goedeke played guard last year. He was a right tackle in college, but now he's pushed out there. The other side's tough this week. You have Tristan Wirfs, who's one of the best tackles in the league. But excited to watch him go against Josh Sweat because Sweat's been outstanding. He's carried over everything he did in training camp.
Yeah, he's been really good. He's been getting a lot of pressures. He's only got the one sack.
1.5.
1.5. Who do you think has been the Eagles' best defensive player? 2 games.
Sweat.
Yeah, you can go Sweat. You can make a case for Jalen Carter, but or Jordan Davis. But yeah, Sweat's he's been by far their best pass rusher. Let's just see more.
You could say Slay too, even though he got beat by one of the best receivers ever a few times, but He's been really good.
Yeah, he's been fine.
I'd probably go Sweat though.
Yeah, I might go Jalen Carter, but in any case, I'd like to see. I don't think Reddick's been awful.
No, I thought he had some really good pressure in that first game. Actually,
yeah,
got after it. I think there's a little learning curve, but also last year he didn't have a sack in the first 2 games either, and then he had 4.5 in his next 3. So
yeah, I was looking at that. They had 70 sacks last year. They only had 3 in their first 2 games.
Yeah,
so they're ahead of last year's pace. They have 4, but that was interesting to note. But yeah, you would like to see pressure from some different guys there. Zach Cunningham's been blitzing a lot.
Yes, that's been fun. I went through and I'm writing a story about their line play and kind of moving guys around a little bit. Like they've had Josh Sweat at the 4-eye a bunch. They've had him inside. They've had Fletcher and Jalen Carter take some reps at end. So they're really mixing it up to get different matchups. And one of the things they've done is they've shown a 5-man front with either Reddick or Sweat on one side, and then Zach Cunningham is like an outside linebacker. And sometimes they're bringing him, sometimes they're dropping him. When they bring him at times, they'll drop the other outside backer, whether that's Reddick or Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun looks.
Yeah, interesting.
They're also blitzing Morrow quite a bit.
Yeah, Morrow and Cunningham are the 2 big blitzers. One guy who they cut and one guy who wasn't in training camp till week 3.
Yeah. All part of the plan with Nick Morrow, as Sean Desai said. Prediction time.
Okay.
This line has moved a little bit. I think it started at 6.5 down to 4. I think it went down to 4. Now it's at 4.5 on PointsBet.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I do think the Eagles will win. I do think it'll be close. I think it'll be a fairly low-scoring game in the 20s and the low 20s. I'm going to go Eagles like 24-21.
Eagles 20. I'm going to write this down. Eagles 24-21. I like that score. I was a little higher scoring
Mhm.
on this. I went Eagles 28, Bucks 23.
Okay, we're in the same ballpark.
Same. I'm right around that line. You have the Bucks covering that, or you have the Bucks taking the points there. I have the Eagles covering. That's all.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a fun.
I think we'll learn a lot about this team and where they are in a lot of areas.
Yeah, it's true. And they had a couple extra days to prepare, which should help.
Yeah, it should. We'll see.
All right. We good?
Yeah.
We'll have a late night pod probably on Tuesday morning. I'm not going to get any sleep.
Well, it's an early
7:15.
7:15 instead of 8:15 because Tampa's in the central time zone.
That's not true. There are 2 games.
When are you going down?
Sunday morning.
You gonna make it to Frenchie's?
Yeah, I might. It should be nice weather, so get outside a little bit. Not sure exactly what I'm going to do.
It's gonna be pouring here all weekend. You
Yeah.
might stay down there a couple extra days.
And not a bad idea. I hope my bike gets off okay with all the rain. We'll see.
Yeah. Good luck.
All right, let's wrap this up.
You might need to go down early.
If you would be so kind, you know the stuff to do. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button, subscribe there as well. We appreciate all the support. That's it. For Rube, Dave, this has been the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.